Hey, it's Mark Ferguson with Invest for More, and this is my truck that was stolen earlier this week. So I'm going to talk about what happened, how it was stolen, maybe how some people can avoid the same issue I had, and also we have an update from the police that I will share at the end as well. Now, it's a 2017 Velociraptor 500. Some people think this is like a $200,000 truck. I actually bought it for $62,000 a few years ago. So the Velociraptor 500 is actually the baby Velociraptor. It doesn't have the Coyote V8 in it, but still a fun truck. Hennessy takes it, modifies the suspension, engine a little bit, wheels, tires, bumpers, all of that. So I've had this truck for a while. It's been really great. Haven't had too many issues with it. And Monday night, it was stolen. And so I came out of my house in the morning, like I normally do on a Tuesday, with my two 13-year-old twins to take them to school, and open the garage, and I'm like, where's my truck? And I thought, I'm like, sometimes I let my son, back it up just a little bit to play basketball or something, but he obviously shouldn't be driving in the street, anything like that. And I'm usually there. I'm like, you didn't move it, did you? He's like, nope, I didn't move it. And I was like, is this a joke? But no, someone had stole it at 1 a.m. in the morning, and I was actually probably up. So I usually go to bed at like 1:30 sometimes and get up around 7. I just don't need much sleep. But I was probably in the basement and didn't hear anything. So that was the car, we think, had the people in it who stole it. You can see them flashing their lights. This is from a neighbor's camera. So thank you to my neighbors who gave us tons of footage, because our cameras, of course, weren't working. We were planning to get some different cameras or hardwire them because they're battery operated and the batteries are always dying. You have to recharge them. But anyway, we got lots of footage from our neighbors. And so basically what happened is we could see at least 3 guys walking down the middle of the street. I assume they were guys. You couldn't see them super close. And they must have had some kind of fob copy or whatever device, because my truck was locked. The keys weren't in it. I still had both my key fobs. They did not get those. And basically, this is looking at my house from across the street. My truck is in the driveway there, right to the bottom left of that bright light. This is looking at my house again from a different camera. And so it's hard to see, but they unlocked it or got it open, pushed it out into the street, and then they started it once they're a little bit away from my house. So that morning, took my wife's car to take the kids to school. She called the police, brought the car back. I ended up taking one of my other cars to work, and you can see kind of where my truck was parked here. This is from my Mark's House of Cars channel when I was doing a video on the Countach, but I parked the truck down there usually so my kids can play basketball, or I play basketball with them when I'm not tearing a calf muscle, and I've kept it down there for a long time. And honestly, when I drive with my other cars home and I see it there, I'm like, wow, it's just kind of a sitting duck right there. But again, you hope that no one would steal it. And if it was locked and they didn't have the keys, I guess I didn't realize how easy it was to steal it. Maybe it wasn't easy, but they probably had some pretty advanced techniques. So called the police, talked to them, told them everything, the description. It's a very unique truck, obviously. There's, quite a few F-150s. There's fewer Raptors, and there's almost no Velociraptors out there. It's a very special one-off car from Hennessy, and they probably make less than 100 of them a year. I'm not sure exactly how many of those they make. So it's pretty rare to see them around. Maybe they make more than that, but I think my badge in my truck said it's number 17 or something. So you'd think if they stole it, they'd just get rid of it, part it out. Who knows, because it's a very distinguishable, very easy to spot truck with the markings on it, and it being a Velociraptor, not just a Raptor. But I posted this story all over my Facebook, Instagram, YouTube here, just in case someone saw it. Had lots of comments about it being in Mexico already or shipped to Africa, who knows. And one of the really crappy things was my golf clubs were in there, which, you know, are not always easy to replace everything you have in there. And then my change counter, my really, really good change counter was in there. I have my bad one that I used for a while. It's just awful. And it's not easy to find those change counters. And they're pretty expensive if you buy them new. So that was a huge bummer. And I had pretty much, you know, just come to terms with I'm probably never going to see my truck again. I'll probably never see my golf clubs again, or my change counter, or the other random stuff I had in my truck, which wasn't as important. But thankfully, I had some really good friends, and they had already gotten a golf bag together with clubs for me that they'd all donated. So thank you for that. And then here's another angle of the truck driving away from a different side. And then here comes the silver minivan following them. Or you can kind of see it, they had their lights off. Not suspicious at all there. And here you can see a much better view of the minivan following my truck as it drove away. Good news is, just like my truck, there's very few silver minivans out there. So, sure, that will be very, very easy to spot. Now, after posting stuff on different social media channels and everything, everyone's like, oh, don't you have the Ford Pass? And I literally didn't even know what the Ford Pass was. So I bought this truck used. I had no idea what the Ford Pass is. I guess you can have an app that remotely starts it and different things and tracks the truck. But I did call Ford. I called their stolen vehicle department, talked to someone there. They had me fill out a form, said they'd try and track it, had to send that form to the police, and the police had to send that form back to Ford for some reason, even though the police didn't sign it or anything. Ford had to have them send it back. That was kind of confusing to everybody, including the police, but that took a while, and we finally got that done. And then Ford came back and said, well, we can't track it. So not sure why they couldn't track it. Never did hear about that. But that was kind of the night of Tuesday. It had been a while. And I was really beginning to lose hope, especially when they said they couldn't track it, that I would ever find the truck again. Today is Wednesday. And then I actually got a call from the police officer who was working the case around noon today. And he asked me, hey, have you heard from the Larimer County's sheriff yet? I'm like, no, I haven't heard anything. And my interest was very piqued at this point. He said, well, we found your truck. I'm like, really? And they found my truck. And I'm like, great. It's probably destroyed. It's probably, who knows what happened to it. I heard another story from someone who said they had their truck stolen in Greeley. It was taken to Fort Collins. All the VINs were scraped off. It had temp tags put on it that were fake, and they sold it to someone for real cheap. And that's how they would make money. So actually hearing that story, I'm like, well, maybe it won't be in Mexico or Africa or who knows, or parted out in a chop shop somewhere. And yes, I did drive by some of my properties to see if it was in those properties. Not that I think they're chop shops or anything like that, but I did drive by some of my properties, some other properties that are always storing vehicles and have vehicles around them with no luck. But the police officer said, and maybe I'll show you this to give you a preview. That's my change machine. And that's from this afternoon. I have it back. It's intact. It's not been pawned or broken or stolen. It's not in a different country. My truck has been recovered. And it's got quite the story behind the recovery as well. So I guess that's just par for the course with my real estate and everything that happens. This was me today going to the Larimer County Sheriff's Office where they're processing my truck for evidence. So here's what happened. At 10:30 on Tuesday, 10:30 p.m., a sheriff's deputy saw my truck at a gas station with a guy in it. He saw it had a temp tag on it, but it didn't look right because they fake temp tags. So he tried to stop him, or I think the truck was already stopped. He pulled behind him. When he pulled behind him, the truck took off, didn't speed, but it went the speed limit with its hazards on, and drove, I think, down I-25 with the police behind him until he got to an embankment, stopped, jumped out of the truck, jumped over the embankment. The police chased him. They tracked him for 2.5 miles, and the guy got away. So they took my truck here, processed it for fingerprints, any evidence. I came over to tell them if there's any stuff in there that wasn't mine. They did find I don't know if I should even say what they found. I won't say what they found. I found a Carl's Jr. bag that wasn't mine. They got lunch, but that wasn't much help. But they said they got some fingerprints, some evidence. They took my DNA, made sure it wasn't from me. And so hopefully they will catch the guys. Now, the truck seems to be okay. There's a few scratches on it I don't think were there. And I was going to drive it home, and it wouldn't start. So I'm like, okay, what's going on? No power, nothing at all. I'm like, well, that's weird that it would die that quick. So they brought a battery charger over. Nothing. And I'm looking around. Oh, the battery cable's disconnected. Should have looked at that first, right? But I'm sure the tow truck driver did that. So I put on the battery cable, went in to start it. My power was on there. Nothing else. No power. I'm sorry, no starting. Had power, but no starting. And it kept saying key not detected. So the police officers called their stolen car task force, talked to them, and basically when they use their machine to flash the key fob or whatever it is and use that to start the truck, it reprograms all the keys and everything so my keys don't work anymore. So there's a scratch you can kind of see. I'm 95% sure that wasn't there. And my kids, the police were funny, like, oh, somebody wrote Cheese Club all over the dirty windows. Do you think that's a clue or part of their calling cards? I'm like, no, I think that was my kids who did that. Sorry. I forgot to ask my kids if they did that, but I saw that at the liquor store the other day. Cheese Club was written all over my truck. The golf clubs were still in the back. I think everything was still in it. They didn't take anything out, but I can't get to the back because it won't unlock. It's locked. The doors are unlocked, but the back is locked. So I could peek under my bed, but I can't get in there. There's not enough room to see all my stuff was still in there. So it's alive. It's okay. I don't think there's anything too wrong. It turns out they punched the lock. That's how they got into it. And then they used their black market machine to somehow intercept my key fob signal from inside, or I'm not sure exactly how all that works. I have heard from people, if you want to store your keys far away from your vehicles. Mine weren't that close, but I guess close enough. And you can also put them in like a Faraday bag or something that might block the signals. Obviously, if you have a club or something to secure the steering wheel, that helps. Tracking, devices also could help locate it. If you lose it, of course, it's, everyone's like, you should have done all that. Well, yeah, after it being stolen, I should have done it. Easy to say now, but you don't always think about that stuff beforehand. So, got really lucky here. Hopefully the truck's okay. It's got to be, have a few things fixed as far as the keys and all of that. And then the police also want to get some of their other investigators over to analyze the information system, because they had a task force just for raptors, because so many raptors were stolen a few years ago in Denver, that they can get a lot of data from that if somebody uses some of these key fob copiers to break in. So that might help them find the guy and where he was and all that stuff too, or guys, people, plural, and see where they were, what they're doing, all of that. So we'll see how all that plays out. The police were super nice, super awesome in this whole situation. Very helpful, Larimer County and Weld County. So that was cool. The guy who found it was actually narcotics. So I'm like, did you check for drugs and all that? He's like, yep, we checked the truck very thoroughly for drugs, residue. Didn't find anything. So that's good. So all in all, could have been way worse. Obviously, I don't have license plates anymore. They took the license plates, so you might try and use them on a different vehicle. So I've got to figure that out. Always fun to go to the license plate place. But yeah, obviously it could have been way worse, and that's a pretty minor thing to have to do compared to what could have had to have been done. Now I want to give an update on some other things too. This is footage from when my office was broken into a few years ago. And so the liquor store I bought was broken into a couple of months ago. Yes, crime in Colorado is real, and Colorado has led the nation in stolen car thefts and close to that in property crimes. I think a lot of that stems from the punishment and state laws about crime. But anyway, the person who broke into my office stole quarters, camera, did damage, probably a couple $1,000 in damage to me, broke into 15 other offices. They stole, I think, 30-some cars or more, stole identities from 30-some people. They stole credit cards from me they tried to use, stole hundreds of checks from us. We had to redo all of our checking accounts because of that. It was a massive, massive pain. And then they had run from the police, were finally caught. And so I had talked to multiple police officers in that case, given them tons of surveillance, spent a ton of time giving them information on all of the data and everything we could find, and helping them out. And they are very cool. The police officers are very cool. Well, when the liquor store was broken into, it kind of reminded me of this case. I'm like, I haven't heard anything in like 2 years on this case. And I know the guy was arrested. I know he's awaiting trial. And on the liquor store break-in, the DA contacted me in like 2 weeks later after that guy was arrested and said, here's your victim restitution affidavit. Please fill this out and let us know how much money you lost, the damage, all that stuff. I'm like, oh, okay, I can do that. I'm like, what about this other case where nobody ever contacted me once and my office was broken into? And then I looked up the person's name and they'd already gone to trial or agreed to a plea, I'm not sure, had gotten a 4-year sentence and are eligible for parole after 1 year, after stealing 30 cars, identities, all this stuff. And I said, I was never contacted on this. And the DA assistant or whoever it was said, well, I looked up the name, I looked up the case. You're not listed as a party. Your office isn't listed. Nothing's listed there. And they kept asking for a case number. So I couldn't find a case number from 2 or 3 years ago for some reason. So anyway, I ended up emailing the police officer who was super helpful, thinking there's no way they'll respond, or who knows if they're even still working there. He responded, gave me a case number, gave me all this information about how my crime and victim was tied to the other offices, and they gave all this evidence to the DA, tying everything together, and then the officers' names and the case numbers. It was incredibly helpful. And so I forwarded that to the DA yesterday. And then let me check right now. Just want to make sure. No response. I forwarded that information again to them today. It's been a full day. No response, no reply from them, after they literally were replying every, 30 seconds, minute after I sent them something yesterday when they didn't see me in the case. And then all of a sudden I had the case number and this email from the officer detailing all that happened. Now they won't respond to me. And then I talked to the Larimer County sheriff about that. I'm like, because we were talking about crime and different things and sentencing, and I'm like, yeah, I told him about this case. I didn't know if he heard about it. He's like, no. And then I told him the sentencing, and I told him that I'd never been contacted, and he said, that's illegal. They have to contact you. If they don't contact you, that's against the law. And so I'm wondering if the DA is now scrambling, trying to figure out how to fix this situation where they completely screwed up and didn't include me in this. So we'll see how all that goes. But kind of crazy, the sentencing on that. It'll be interesting to see what happens with the guy who broke into the liquor store 3 times. And then if anything happens with these car thefts. But, when you're doing hundreds of thousands of dollars of damage and theft and stealing people's identities and just possibly destroying lives and doing all this stuff, and you pretty much get a slap on the wrist, then you can understand why crime goes up and criminals just keep doing it over and over again, because the rewards are greater than the possible punishment. So, yeah, we'll see what happens there. I'll have updates on that. If anybody has any ideas or suggestions, let me know. And then, yeah, we'll see what happens with the truck. I'll get it back here hopefully pretty soon. And if anything happens with this case, we'll have updates there. Of course, we'll have some updates on the liquor store laundromats. I have my change counter back, so that's cool. Other flips, rentals, I got 2 more properties under contract, a commercial rental and a townhouse flip, so we'll have those coming up here soon. We'll have other flips that have progress coming up soon. There's a lot happening. Let me know what you think. We'll be back soon.